Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to be featuring the work of Dr. William Thornburgh, and he's going to talk to us today about integrating AI in the classroom. And Bill's a very action-oriented guy, and so we're going to hit the ground running and talk about developing policies and assignments to meet your needs.
Hey, thank you, Lisa, and welcome to everybody. Um, Most people just call me Bill, um, and it's good to see you all today. And I'd like to just start by saying I'm beyond very impressed with all the things that Lisa does with AI on campus and beyond, and organizing these various PD sessions. So applause to Lisa. Thank you. Um, I have been dabbling with AI for quite a while within our department. Myself and a few other the professors were on an AI committee and developing policy for our department-wide syllabus. And basically, after really digging into that, we discovered that it's really probably not possible to have a department-wide consistent AI policy because everybody is in a different place, not only with comfort level, but with just their own usage of AI and knowledge of AI at this point. Although it's not new, it's still new, but so many things are coming out from the day to day. It's ever changing. And so hopefully you all, you're here and you have some interest in this. You've at least thought about an AI policy if you don't already have one. So I will share mine. We'll go over a couple of examples, and then I'd like to throw you into breakout rooms and just have you work together. And if you already have one, you can revisit that. You can help others, or you can hang out with me and Lisa in the main room and just maybe ask some questions. So that'll be what's coming up. And then we're also going to look at assignments, because one of the things I finally decided to do, after just, if you jumped on early, you may have heard Lisa and I talking about ChatGPT and some of the new things it's doing and how people are having fun with it. I finally decided to transition from playing around with it to actually using it with my students. And so I started small. I took an assignment and I said, let's just try this and see how it goes. And let's see what the students think. And then I've worked it into a few other assignments. And in fact, I recently completely designed a new assignment with AI in mind to enhance that experience for students. So hopefully we'll have a chance that you can think about something specific. And I think Lisa had a good idea the other day, maybe you tried something and it was a disaster. And so what if you took an assignment like that and said, well, let's just use AI and see how we can really just use the same idea but fix it up and make it better. So there's lots of approaches we could take to finding an assignment that we can AI it up and make it more interesting and engaging for our students. So the first thing is I just throw a couple of things up here. And as our small committee started to dig into this, we read a lot of syllabi from other universities and people from different departments, outside of our own, and kind of thinking about what are they trying to say with their policies. And so we definitely figured out that it's important that the instructors, professors have very clear expectations and set boundaries for when AI should or should not be used. It's very important that there's transparency. I preach this to my students often, that if I allow them to use it, then they can use it. But if they choose to use it, they need to provide information to me. And I tell them I need to know what AI tool you used and what was your initial prompt. How did you revise your outputs? And I ask them to give me more. And in fact, it's almost like an assignment within an assignment, really. So there are a number of students who choose to not use it because they don't want to do that extra work. And that's completely fine. I don't require on the day-to-day. I don't require that students use it because I know that while use is widespread, it's mostly superficial, it's mostly Chat GPT, and they're not really using it in a way that's really meaningful at this point in their lives. And some of them are still a little scared of it. I've had, as I ask them to write me reflections, they don't all use it, and there's good reason why for some of them. And then from the professor perspective, obviously, especially for those who aren't using AI at all, it's most likely due to this academic integrity. Like students are cheating if they use it, versus the professor has a fear of digging into it. So it's a very different world in which we live. It's going to continue to evolve. I see AI only becoming better and more directed to our needs. And I hope that everyone starts to really think about it more and how it can be useful in teaching, but beneficial for learning for students. So before and you may see this, but what I kind of like to ask you is just, if you have a policy, go ahead and come off of mute and just share like maybe one or two main ideas, like what was important to you in your own AI policy for students. Please share. Lisa, I'm gonna call on you, cold call on Lisa, and she's gonna kick it off. And so everyone else has a few more seconds to think about what is something important that you did include or that you think you want to include in your new policy.
I think one of the first things you need to do is get very clear in your mind all of the old academic misconduct terms that we think about. What is cheating? What is plagiarism? And do those terms still make sense in light of AI? And then if you've got to revise a term, like plagiarism is one I hit on hard, because people say students plagiarized with the AI, but plagiarism is taking the work of someone else. Are you saying the AI is someone or something, or do we need to revise our terms and think more about over-reliance or misuse? So I think we need to go back very, very early and revisit all of our principles and everything we believe, clarify that in our own mind before we try to codify it into a policy. Yes, what do you have to add, Sandra?
Oh, hi there. I don't have my syllabus right in front of me, but I'm
Sure.
very transparent about my policy. I've kind of gone away from that firm, no cheating, no AI, to welcoming it. So I'll
Yeah,
let students know that I use AI as well, and that we will use AI in the class, and I will let them know when it is permitted. So I try to open it up that way. So that's what I
very
did.
good. Do you also
Yeah.
give examples of when it's permitted so that they understand, yes, this is okay, and no, that's probably not?
Yes, I have like a little blurb that I'll put, in case they don't read the full instructions, that we're using AI for this. And just like William said, I actually, the first time I used it, I gave them the prompt because I wanted all the assignments to look, I wanted to see the variety. So it was really
Yes.
cool to see, I needed them to paste this prompt into Chat GPT, and it was interesting all the variations I got from the assignment. So yes, I let them know when to use it, and when I don't want them to use it.
Perfect.
David included something in the chat there, like I want my students to use AI as a tool to improve their output, not to be totally reliant. That, David, is really awesome. I just had students talk about this on that recent assignment I did, and they kept talking about, well, AI, it doesn't personalize, it doesn't know my students, and it's like, of course it doesn't. Yeah, that's your job. And then they were talking about that I don't think teachers should totally rely on the AI doing their work. And I was like, exactly. AI should supplement, right? It should help you and be an assistant to doing your work. So that's a great point. Okay, we have a little policy there, link. Okay, fantastic. All right, well, good. I appreciate a couple of ideas there. And in a moment, I will show you my policy. It works for me. I like the look of it. I like the content. But one thing I will tell you, after reviewing a lot of policies from a lot of different places, the one thing I did was I just went to ChatGPT and I wrote a prompt and I said, this is what I want to do. Here are some things I think it should include. And I let it brainstorm for me. And then I took it and like anybody that knows AI, I really was critical of that output. I deleted things. I said, oh, I don't like that at all. And then I took things, I was like, I like it, but it's not worded like how I would speak. So I changed it, I added to it, and then it slowly became a policy that I was like, okay, I can live with this, and I think it's clear for my students. So if you have not started policy creation, and you're here today to do that, and I'm going to give you some time to work on that, going to chat is a good starting point, right? And of course, that's something we should always inform our students of, that one of the best ways AI can be used is for brainstorming and being an assistant for us. So just a couple of things that you will see when you click on a link later and you're in a breakout room, and if you're stuck and you want to do some review, you'll see that some of the policies do include like a statement of purpose, but some of them don't, right? These are things that you may want to include, or it's completely up to you. I personally don't restrict, right, or like permit certain tools. I may make suggestions to students, but I'm always happy for them to use the tools that they want to use. So like in my field, which is education, I oftentimes point them to Magic School AI. I think it's a really solid tool. It does a lot of different things, so it's multifunctional. I also recommend Diffit. And Diffit's really good for education. It's good for differentiation. And it does a lot of things like pre-made worksheets and grouping and lesson planning. So like I will recommend those. But the other day I had a student come back at me with one that they tried, and I've never even heard of it. But that's completely fine, right? I think that they need to be out there dabbling and seeing what works for them, and comparing outputs just as we do with various tools, and then making informed decisions on tools that they may want to explore further. Citation,
that
for
being,
me, oh, go
that
ahead.
being said, do you worry about equity concerns when students are allowed to use whichever tool they want? Because a student using a free AI tool is not going to have access to as powerful as an AI as the student that can afford a $20 a month subscription.
I think in certain cases, this should be a consideration. For me at this point, and for students and what we're doing, I don't think even if they had a paid version, it would make any significant impact on their learning or like the grade that they get from me. But I can see in other situations and in other fields where that would be an issue. I will be completely upfront with all of you. I only use free versions of any AI tool, and I think that they do everything I need them to do.
Sure.
I will tell you, Magic School recently, because I'm in their Pioneer program, they recently gave their pioneers access to the upgraded version. And I'm not even sure that I've tapped into the upgraded function, the functions yet, because of the way I use it and when I use it, and how I use it in my classes. So yeah, I mean, Lisa, that's a great point. That there are equity concerns, there are privacy concerns, and accessibility and bias, and all of these things. I know that these are topics that always come up in AI talks. So I think it's a good point, and I think that you should be aware of that and keep that in mind, especially maybe as your assignments get more robust. So at the end of today, hopefully we'll have time that you can think about something very small, an assignment that you can just tweak. And equity is probably not an issue. But if you continue to use it more and you really build your bank of AI enhanced assignments, do keep that in mind.
I think equity may become more of an issue also when our students get better at prompting. Right now, there's no formal guides to teach students how to prompt effectively. And we're all also kind of still keeping our spell books close at hand. You know, I found this one prompt and it works great almost all the time until the day it doesn't. But I think as prompting skills improve, we're going to see that equity may become an issue.
Yeah, and there's some really great resources out there where like there's pre-written prompts and you could just copy those and have them. You know, it's funny because as much as I use AI, I still don't even do that. I probably should. It would just save me a little bit of time. I tend to write it on the spot as I think about the thing I'm going to do. But there's some really great prompts. And if you want, before we leave today, I can show you a couple. One written from the student perspective and one written from the instructor perspective about prompt creation. But it's like I always tell my students, right? The better your prompt is, the better the output. And a cruddy prompt equals a cruddier output. So we do need to teach them. And that actually taps into something we're going to cover here in a moment, which is like, what are the things that we really need to be doing with and for our students before we even start expecting them to use AI on our assignments, if we want them to do those things better. So it's prohibited usage, as Sandra mentioned, and is something that's important to me. And you've probably all seen some version of like that stoplight. We have to let students know when they can and can't use AI. And then, of course, I think for teachers, this is always on our mind, that what happens if a student breaks the policy, if they're habitual offenders. We talked about this in our syllabus committee, and we kind of said, well, maybe the first time it comes down to the individual instructor, and it's either a 0 or it's a 0 and you can resubmit, and there's some kind of grade penalty associated with that. Maybe it's as simple as a little slap on the hand and a talk. But when it gets beyond a time or two, do there need to be more serious consequences? And so then we discussed in our department, it would be a meeting with the peak committee, which is ethics and academics. Maybe it goes through the advisor and it becomes something that actually gets recorded and there's record of this over time. And then it came down to like this being a fail for the class, and then all the way up to academic integrity that gets reported and goes higher in the university chain, that could result in some other consequences, right? So I don't know. I still don't know where I stand here. I just address it head on, when there are violations, or I should say perceived violations by me. I have a chat with them. I say, wow, this seems very AI generated. This language is not normal for your assignments. And if you used it, let's just remember it's not acceptable on discussion boards. And, let's not have this conversation again. And, so far it's been a lot of apologies. I'll redo it, please, thank you. No students really fighting it and saying, I did not, and I refuse, and I hate you for thinking I cheat. Nothing like that. So I feel like just kind of honest and open conversation about it's out there, and I know you use it, I use it. Let's be transparent. I think is very helpful. And then like anytime we can provide resources, some go-tos, right? Like how to create better prompts. Like let's help improve the AI literacy of our students. That could be a good thing to include in your policy. So before I go to that, I want to show you my policy real quick. And that's probably not big enough. Let me open it up. if it wants to open. There we go. So again, this began in ChatGPT. You know, I talked to them about some permitted uses, brainstorming and proofreading, research assistance. You know, these are all things where it's like completely okay. Like they don't even need to ask me if this is the case. But obviously prohibited use. Like I make this very clear. And in fact, even in my online courses, I record videos about AI. I record when it's appropriate. Responsible usage. And like I always tell them, if you're using an output and you're submitting it on your behalf, that's just cheating. And it doesn't benefit you in learning, right? So like, just don't do this. I go into disclosure. I want them to let me know that they're using it and how they're using it. And then of course, like if ever in doubt, just err on the side of caution and just let me know. I felt that it was important to bring up academic integrity. So, you know, just don't be that person. And it's easy for me because, you know, all of my students are going to be teachers one day. So I asked them, do you want your students to do this to you, right? Do you want your students to be in your classroom while you're teaching on their cell phone? No, then don't do it. Do you want your students using AI and cheating? No, you don't. So don't do it. Don't do it here. And then obviously, like just, you know, the last thing, learning goals and AI use. It's an enhancement tool. It shouldn't replace our own thinking, and then being able to develop like skills to use AI better. So I feel like it's a pretty simple policy, but it's clear. It puts it out there. And I think this is the second semester that I've used it. And I've only had to refer 2 students to go back and review this policy. And I was very gentle when I said it, but that was it. So that seems to work for me. Okay, don't save. And let's get back to this. All right. And so because, and that's great that Sandra was talking about the like when it's acceptable and when it's not. This is something I use. I tend to use this one more than the 3-level stoplight, or sometimes that 4-level, which is like the stoplight, and level 4 is AI to infinity, like have at it, go, you know, have fun. I like this one. I think it provides very clear details about each level. And I tend to really allow my students to be like level 2 and 3. I have not had any assignments where I've gone to level 4. But I feel like 2 and 3 is very reasonable. I'm comfortable with it. I still need them to show me that they have some foundational, you know, conceptual knowledge, that they can do things on their own, but I don't mind them using the AI. And this does come from Leon Furze. You can see his name at the bottom there, Furze, and his team. They're out of Australia. And this assessment scale has gone through multiple iterations, but they've done a lot of good work with this AI assessment scale. Okay, so there are some blurbs that you're going to be able to click that link and see. But what I've done is I went ahead and I just opened it up. Let me shift around here. And I wanted to go over just a couple of these with you before I say, okay, we're going into breakout rooms and you're gonna work a little bit. This is from the link I provided to you in the presentation. It's got a little blurb up at the top. And if you click that link, it brings you to this form. And what they have done is they've gone through and they've allowed people to submit syllabus policies, but he also went through and found them. And then anybody that said like, yeah, this is open and free for use, he took them out and he created an annotated list. So let me just shuffle you around on my screen. And you can see just even from the very beginning, like this first policy, which comes from, click on that. oh, sorry, where it comes from is on the other document that you have access to. So this one is for digital innovations and interventions in education. It's simple, it's short, it's super short. They identified no more than 25% should be generated by AI, right? So that's an approach that you could take. Maybe, you know, I've always heard a lot of people talk about like 80-20, 20% AI, 80% human. Whatever percentage you felt comfortable with, you could include. You see here, foundation and instruction and design and learning tech, no restrictions. So this professor must feel very comfortable with AI and likely has, I think, probably adjusted assignments accordingly, where students are able to use AI, but it doesn't totally replace their learning. If we go back here, like let's look at line 6, University of Pennsylvania. Use AI to generate ideas and brainstorm. I really like that the second sentence there, right? And please note there may be inaccuracies, and as Lisa has talked about, many of her presentations, hallucinations occur. So it's important for us to let students know, like, you know, don't just trust it. We have to be critical of the outputs. Letting them know, don't submit it as your own. So that would be an academic integrity issue. And then making sure that you reference and things like that. So some of them are small and some of them are very long, like the one here from social media marketing on line 9. You can see there's a lot going on here. And I'll just kind of leave that there for you to look over for a moment.
All right, so I have dropped the spreadsheet version of this in the chat and the non-spreadsheet version, which is what I think you're looking at right now.
Yes.
Then I also dropped the link that you supplied, which is the annotated syllabus policies created by Daniel Stanford.
Yeah, that's helpful, Lisa. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So again, a couple shorter ones, you know, but like, I think that these provide at least a good basis for where you could start. So I want to go back to the presentation and see your faces for a moment. Let me just ask before we kind of do some work time here, because that's the point of today, right? And not just for me to talk. Do you have any questions or thoughts about policy creation that we can address as a group? And I'm okay with no questions. So here's what we're going to do. Jessica, great, go ahead.
Like 5 years in, I'm still like, I don't remember where the raise hand button is. So I had a panic moment. But so I'm Jessica Hajek. I'm from Our Lady of Lake University in San Antonio. So I'm an outside person, but I really appreciate these. As a department chair, I am struggling with my faculty put these policies in and then don't follow the follow-up then when the students break them, right? So it's like, it's a policy and then nothing happens. The students are still using the ChatGPT. They don't want to file the integrity report. And so I'm like, I'm more concerned of not just putting in the syllabus, but then how do we also ensure faculty, including ourselves or anyone who supervise, then are following up on the things they've said. So maybe like a global what to do after you put it in the syllabus also maybe.
Yes. This was a conversation. Okay, so we're on the department syllabus committee. What we found was that the faculty, they wanted a policy. So in other words, they just wanted us to write it for them. And when we told them, it's just not possible, right? Maybe we could help by writing one that's like a no AI policy all the way up to like, let's use AI policy, but you still have to choose which one. But then the follow-up conversation from faculty members was like, okay, so if we have it, like, where does it go? Individually, I can do things, right? I have the autonomy to make decisions in my classroom, but if we have a habitual offender, serious academic integrity issues, like, is the department chair gonna do something about it? Is it gonna move up to the dean? I mean, like, where does it go? And to be honest, the conversation started and it was great questions, and then it didn't really go anywhere. We didn't have a final answer on that. But also some other things started to happen and we got busy and sidetracked. But I mean, I think that this is on the minds of everybody. So that's a great point. And as a, I don't know. I mean, what do you think should happen? What would you like to see in your department?
I'm trying to get my faculty to move away from the use it and fail policy, because that has resulted in a number of student complaints and grievances that ultimately we end up overturning, and it's just a nightmare, and then nobody's happy, right? I think I did another presentation where they've suggested things like developing the AI use policy with the students, like week one, of like what the students want to agree to, kind of like the community standards that you might do for group work or whatever, to hopefully allow them to take some agency. But it's still like, yeah, you have those offenders, and we've just been then stuck of, we put this policy in. I don't want to just punish the students, because in part they need to learn how to use it properly, but I know a lot of faculty are also hesitant to bring it into their classroom, or they themselves don't know how to use it and can't teach the students how to use it, right?
Yeah.
So we're just kind of stuck. I want more carrot than stick, I think, is what I'm going for, but right now I have neither. So.
Yeah.
Well, and Jessica, as somebody who takes calls, multiple calls every week for, hey, my student used AI and it's disallowed in my class, what should I do? I say, okay, let's back it up to your syllabus. What are your policies in your syllabus? 9 times out of 10, there is no policy, or they have a policy, but it's vague because, again, the faculty aren't actively using AI, so they're not sure how to craft an AI policy. But not only that, how often do we have to say it's in the syllabus because we know the students haven't read the syllabus? As someone who created the syllabus template for our university, I recognize that this massive document I have created may go unread by the vast majority of students. And that's why it's so vitally important to take those syllabus policies and repeat the pertinent parts on the individual assignments where AI is going to be utilized, but also demonstrate in class, hey, this is a great way to use AI for this assignment. We're going to use it to brainstorm topics, but then you need to do this next piece completely human-centered. And then the piece after that, maybe you use AI as a co-conspirator to move on to the next step. And so it's talking about it in class, demonstrating it on assignments, and repeating the pertinent pieces, making it a daily conversation, or a conversation that occurs as often as needed for the students to enjoy success and have that carrot rather than the stick.
Yeah.
Awesome. Christopher, what would you like to add?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I was just thinking as well, something that I think is helpful is, at least in my perspective, when you're creating a syllabus policy, I think it might also be helpful to think about the learning objectives. And I jumped in a little late, so I don't know if you guys talked about that, but since like the policy is always going to be, or the syllabus is always going to be, kind of in conjunction with the learning outcomes. Like if your learning outcomes are to, do all these projects, then there's going to be stuff about the projects in the syllabus. If the learning outcomes have a bunch of tests, then there's going to be things about tests in the syllabus. And so I think the way we craft our learning outcomes, the more that they're, I guess what AI is really doing is pushing academia from an academic heavy place, which kind of sounds weird, but what I'm trying to say is it's pushing it more toward real world expertise. And because professors are now able to offload a lot of the maybe rote teaching, or a lot of the lower level Bloom's taxonomy instruction, and at least if we're able to kind of take advantage of it and leverage it good enough, and then after that, once we kind of rework our learning outcomes, then that will help professors have a better idea of what they need to craft in their syllabus, because it follows from the learning outcomes.
Bill, I'll let you comment, then I have feelings.
Well, I think that, so one, let me go back for just a moment and say, Jessica or any other department chairs that are on the call, I think that this is that embracing it versus being resilient to it. I think this is where a little bit of professional development comes in. The professors who are fearing it, introduce them to some tools and show them some things that AI can do that will wow them, right? And so if we can open their eyes, maybe they'll be more willing to try it out. Now, with what Christopher was just talking about, this is I think a really cool thing. You mentioned Bloom's taxonomy. And as we think about like, well, how can we supplement learning and maybe update assignments to get away from like that lower level, cognitive load and really push students to real world application is, I think that, and you can see my screen, right? Using Gen AI with Bloom's.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, along the right side, this shows you like different ideas for how we can update our assignments to, I think, improve, or increase student learning. So I completely agree with what you said. And I think that this kind of captures a little bit of what you were talking about.
So going back and also picking up Mary's question, she's curious if anyone's institution, department, curricular committee has standard language around minimal standards for AI use related to academic integrity use. Bill, do you want to address that before I offer some comments?
And then because I caught most of it, but not all, I'm going to go to her chat. Is at the end. Let me see. Pardon me, a standard language minimal. So this was part of our conversation, right? There were faculty who wanted standard language. We felt that we could not give it to them because we can't make them use AI. They can use it if they want, and then I can't make anyone feel more comfortable using AI. That's really got to be self-directed, right? I mean, self-initiated. They need to take that initiative to go out and to learn more and then to try it. I can encourage, I can help, but like we didn't feel that we could tell them what to do. So therefore, we gave them some ideas, we provided them with sample policies, and we did some PD in follow-up meetings, but we never really developed a standardized policy.
Right. And on the heels of that, whenever I created the syllabus template for use by all faculty across our university, I offered up some starting language for AI is forbidden, AI can be used on some assignments, and AI can be used on most assignments. But ultimately, this needs to be departmental, discipline, maybe even course specific. I can see where we're drilling down now to a course specific level, where suppose you're in a freshman level course where students really need to develop those foundational skills. It makes sense to say, I really don't want you to use AI on this, because always predicate it with that because we want students to be partners in their learning journey. But then maybe in a sophomore or junior level course, we add some AI use, again, because eventually we want the students to develop those discipline-specific AI skills so that they're well prepared to function as an individual in their discipline as a practitioner post-graduation. And so I think that, yeah, we're going to see that we can offer recommendations at these departments or in these committees, but then it ultimately becomes a course-by-course decision.
Yeah. So I think that this would be a good time I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and here's some things to think about. If you have a policy, have it ready. Maybe you'll share that. Maybe you could revisit it, but take a look at some of the links that Lisa threw in the chat there. If you're someone who has not created a policy, or you have one, but you're just not comfortable with it, let's try to figure out, like in your small group, figure out how you can update it. And let's just we get so busy with so many other things, right? So let's use the next, I don't know, 10 or 12, maybe up till 11:30 at the latest minutes to work on this, to bring it back and make it fresh and update it. Lisa and I will be in the main room and we'll just hang out for a bit. So if you go to your breakout room and you're like, I'm not quite ready to talk to them yet, come back and ask some specific questions, and maybe Lisa and I can help direct you a little bit more. But then we'll come back together and we'll transition over to thinking about assignments.
And then I do have those rooms ready. If you wind up in a room and nobody transitions over, hold tight. I'll move you to a room where there's active participants.
Welcome back. I was able to jump into a couple of the rooms and the conversation sounded great. I'm curious, was the conversation mostly just AI and AI use, or did anyone actually like work on policy? Like, tell me about it. Kelly, go ahead. I see you shaking your head there.
Oh, well, David shared some really good examples of his David Yates. You should speak up. Like, he shared some examples with us, but then we veered off into just general talk about AI.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, of course we're here to talk policy, but at the same time, like I always tell my students, if we're on topic of AI, let's just talk about whatever, let's learn. So I was happy to hear those conversations. David, do you want to share anything that you were talking about in your breakout group?
You're muted.
I shared a couple of documents in my breakout room, but do I need to put them back in there for everybody, or are only the people who are in my breakout room able to see those documents?
They're exclusive to the breakout room. So
They're
yeah, if you want to
exclusive.
share with everybody.
Sure. What I shared with the group was the fact that early on in our AI use, I teach for the Creativity Studies Department at SUNY Buffalo State.
Wonderful.
And early on in our use of AI, we started using it right away because the potential was, to all of us, was extraordinary. And especially when it comes in, you see in a lot of policies this description, brainstorming, which, by the way, was invented by a by a Buffalo advertising executive named Alex Osborne about 70 years ago. But what we discovered early on was the overall policy statements on our syllabi, they weren't specific enough for individual assessments. So we developed a series of guidelines and checklists for the different types of activities or assignments that we give. So we came up with AI use guidelines for writing a paper, making a presentation, completing a project, teaching or training others. And so what I'll do is I'll put the same one I put in the breakout room. I'll put that in the chat. So for instance, here's the guidelines for
Actually, Kelly already put those in for us.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right. So again, for each type of assessment, we still have the syllabus statement, but we just found we needed to be more specific. So for each type of an assessment or assignment, we developed guidelines that would break it down even by task. Okay. And then here's what you can use AI for that we think it would be good at, but here is your responsibility as the human in the room, because we wanted to keep stressing to our students the real danger. There are lots of challenges with AI, ethical and energy and equity, but the long-term danger is to our species' ability to think. If we outsource our thinking to machines, okay, we just felt, okay, that's just not cool. That's not good, right? So that's why all of our guidelines stress, okay, here's what your responsibility is, right? So we're going back and forth. Here's the task. Here's what AI can possibly do. And then each one of us goes in and we can actually modify those even more specific to our own courses and to the way we've structured assignments. So the student looks at that guideline document before they complete the assignment. Then when they complete the assignment, that's when they submit the checklist. And the checklist is just that. They go right down the checklist. Here are the tools that I used. And again, we were very specific because we found in our discussions with students, they had more questions than we had answers to. When it came to, okay, can I use it for this? Can I use it for this? Can I? So we wanted to get them in there. And as I told the group, we not only felt it imperative that we help our students develop their AI literacy skills, because I use the phrase with the group, that genie is not going back in the bottle. We can lament all day and all night, right? All the challenges, and we know they're real. I'm not trying to downplay the legitimate concerns that people have about AI, but it's being infused everywhere. You know, I've been using EdTech my whole career. I have never seen a technology that has so rapidly developed and caught on and been infused like this one. It's all, you know, I can do to stay up. The other final thing I would say is we wanted to make sure the wording of both our syllabus statement and our guidelines was as least adversarial as possible. Okay, because we, just as I said, we believe it's our obligation to help our students develop AI literacy skills. We all know that when we become policemen in our courses, right? If you do this, this is going to be the punishment. If you do this, this is going to be the punishment. The more emphasis there is on that, the more adversarial our relationship becomes, and nobody wins. You know, learning is definitely hurt. Again, I'm not advocating that there shouldn't be detail about violations. I think departments and individuals, you know, professors need to address those. But what I would caution is just the tone of the way we word everything, right?
Mhm.
So that it's collegial and supportive and mentoring rather than what do we call that? The gotcha syndrome, right? So anyway, there we are.
That's I really like this in helping students to say, like, you know, you still have a role in all of this, right? The human component needs to remain like an integral piece of this. So that's great. Thanks for sharing. And I completely agree with you about how we talk about it. And you know, we're here to facilitate, right? Like not referee in the sense that we're looking for something to be wrong and we're going to get you. We're just helping to just like get through the process together, and everybody learns, and we're working as a team. And it goes a lot further in terms of relationship building, and I think in the whole educational process. So that's great. So you all, if you were having AI conversation, which that's what I heard, fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to kind of come on screen and share and to talk and learn from each other. You know, I consider myself a novice in AI. I like to use it. I'm not a know-it-all. So I think that it takes an entire village here to continue to learn about this and to get better at what we do. And so we need to share, and I appreciate that. Thank you. The next part, for the end here, in the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to talk about assignments. So one of the things, you know, that I think is so important about AI is like how it can enhance the learning of our students. Which I think by default just means also if we're using AI, we're probably creating more student-centered and engaging activities for the students. But you know, it's able to scaffold assignments and really be meaningful um, unlike what David was just talking about, right? We don't want the computer to be doing the thinking for us. We still need to be teaching our students how to think critically. And I think the AI could be used in a way that promotes that thinking and problem solving, rather than students just completely relying on it to do all of the work, and removing that thought process. So I'm going to show you a couple of assignments that I have created. And assessments. I'm not going to show any assessments right now, but like I've used AI to create some assessments. But obviously, like when we are using AI within assignments that we've created, like we do have to think about how we'll assess them. Right? Do we assess them in the same traditional way that we do all other assignments that we've ever given? And I would argue that it's going to be a little bit different. And of course, it would depend on the actual assignment. One of the things that I learned when I started at EKU was this TILT framework. And I do want to just touch on this for a moment. I started to dabble in it right after learning about it, but recently, as I have a new textbook and I'm creating all new assignments for my current course, I find myself just tilting every assignment. And it's basically being very explicit with our students what we're doing in these three avenues, right? Like first, like the purpose of this assignment is, and an explanation of here's why we're doing this, and this is why this is how it will link to real world application. This is how it will benefit you. So I think a lot of times we give assignments, right? Teachers give assignments, and we know why. But oftentimes students don't really know why they're doing it. They just know it's something they need to complete because we've asked them to. So when we create a purpose statement for an assignment, it really helps to direct them to why they're doing it and how it's beneficial. We can outline the tasks involved, the one task or the many tasks involved, what they'll do during that assignment. And then we provide them with success criteria. And these are like, when you do this, right, check mark, right, you've been successful. And it really helps then. And in other words, it's like a generic rubric. Like the other day, I did an in-class assignment where I said, okay, success criteria. You worked in a group. You created a rubric. You used the rubric. You collected and you put your data on the board. And you did a final ranking of, we did an activity where they ate cookies and they voted, the best cookie is based on a rubric because they're learning about rubrics. And, it's very simple success criteria, but like, did you do each of these things? And at the end of the day, like, can you apply now this cookie rubric to real world application using rubrics in the classroom? A couple of them told me about it and check, you've done it. So this has been a successful activity and knowledge building endeavor. And so it's me being transparent with them to help them be as successful as they can on an assignment, right? So transparency is beneficial for all. So this is the TILT framework. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two assignments. Now, one of them was just, this was a recent assignment. And this was what I consider to be an AI enhanced assignment, right? So you can see there, I created a little visual, a roadmap. I numbered the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of what they were tasked with.
Hey,
and
Bill, we can't
I
actually
basically
see it.
asked them to start.
Bill,
Lisa, do you have something?
we can't see it.
You can't see my screen? Well, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
Let me go back and let me get out of this. And I'll try it again. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
So on this roadmap, you can see right there at the very bottom, it says no AI on steps 1 and 2. This is where I wanted them to create learning targets. I wanted them to practice writing a variety of test questions based on those learning targets. And that, because teachers need that practice. But then in steps 3 and 4, use AI, right? I want you to use AI on that same standard to create learning targets, to ask it to write a variety of test questions, assessment questions, and then write a reflection. The last step was write a reflection. Tell me about this process. So I tilted it, and you can see there a purpose and a task and success criteria. And, from my perspective, I wanted to teach them to use AI better. I wanted to just get some of them the experience of using AI, because I know that some of them are still not using it. But I wanted them to also, through that reflection, kind of say, I think I'm doing okay here, or yeah, I still have a lot of work to do. Now, one of the coolest things that came from this was, and I want to go back to my presentation because I put a student quote in here, and I was very surprised at this. But after this assignment, I got this message from a student, and I'll let you read it. And I felt very good about this assignment after I saw this. And this was one, a specific email to me, but in reading the reflections, how many students made similar comments. And it also just got me thinking about workload and what we oftentimes give our students to complete for our courses. Not always thinking about all the other courses they have and all the other assignments. That I think the AI gives us the ability to have them do meaningful work in less time. That we don't need to give them hours and hours of assignments to do, when in fact we could give them a shorter assignment with enhancing the assignment with AI, and they see the value in it. And so this is someone that's a second semester junior at Eastern Kentucky University, and really feeling like it's been the most beneficial class, and that she's learning. And this was fantastic. So this makes me want to do more assignments where I'm using AI to help them, evaluate their own level of knowledge with what the AI is doing, as well as building their AI literacy and teaching them how to navigate this new world. AI is going to be so beneficial to teachers by acting as an assistant and being able to get, Christopher mentioned earlier, like helping with a lot of trivial tasks, eliminating all these hours of prep time to do this when AI can do it fast, and then we can just clean it up. But we have to teach them how to do that properly. So I was super happy with how that turned out. Now I want to show you one other assignment that, let me find it here. I want to show you one other one. Now this one was more of an AI exploration, where I think that there's still a number of students who just aren't, they just aren't using AI as much as we think they are, and are definitely not using it in a meaningful way. So again, I tilted this one. It's right here. And so this is where I was asking them to do a variety of things with AI. Everything from part one was creating an image, because a lot of them are still, even when given options of various tools, their fallback, right? The go-to for students is still ChatGPT. And on one hand, that's okay because it's good. But on the other hand, especially in my field, education, there are education-specific AI tools that they could be using, but they go to chat. So I wanted them to branch out. I gave them some ideas. You can see there, they could use DALL-E or Canva, or find another that would allow them to create an image. I asked them to go in and create a lesson plan and some assignments, again, giving them some ideas of tools that they could use, trying to expand their horizons, not only in content, but AI's capability and AI tools out there. The next part was differentiation, right? So they have all these educational materials. Now let's differentiate and introduce them to DIFIT. And then part 4 is like, okay, let's think about it strictly as an assistant. And so let's look at like some of the different things that it can do for us and giving them some additional tools. So what I found here was they thought it was a lot of work. They had a lot to say about it. So if you feel like your students are just not as aware of AI as you would like them to be, an assignment like this is helpful because it makes them go out and do specific things. And again, like as a teacher, I can't imagine a lot of times where I would want AI generated images to be used. However, I have seen examples both in biology and in astronomy where you could have AI create images and then you would have the students evaluate the shortcomings of those images based on the content that you've been teaching. So there is value in it. And I think in certain disciplines, the use of images could be much greater. But it's really, this was a really eye-opening experience for students who only use ChatGPT and use it in a very basic way. So, so you could create an AI exploration assignment or you could enhance an assignment. And then that's really where we were going. Now we're going to run out of time today, but that's really one of the goals was to get you today to be thinking about creating assignments for your students. So I'll pop back over to the presentation and go back to this idea that when you consider using AI more specifically or embedded within what you do, don't forget we need to help students, right, to prepare them to do the best they can do on those assignments. And so here's a couple of the ways that we can do that, right? Like teaching students like prompt generation. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, like, there's a lot of templates that are out there. So if you wanted to just provide post templates on your learning management system or provide a handout for students, that's going to help them. Teaching them about hallucinations and bias and those inaccuracies. I heard one of the breakout groups, I think it was Mary, talking about like some of the data and how it can be flawed. We need to show them that. So then they're not so willing to just copy and paste, right? They actually need to spend some time reviewing the outputs. The strengths and weaknesses of and where the data is coming from. I read an article that talked about of all of the data that's being used, these billions and billions of web pages, like 90% of it is coming from like Eurocentric sources. So there's an inherent bias there. And then of course, like what I found with my assignments was students were getting an output and then they were reporting it to me. And then my question back was, well, did you ask the AI to revise? Like, did you ask it for any more? Or did you just accept it? And they tend to just take the first output and that's what they talk about. So we have to really stay on them about you get an output, right? Engage with the AI. Tell it that this isn't quite what I wanted. Ask them for more detail. Ask it to vary its level of difficulty on questions. Ask it to give you a reading passage at a lower reading level. I mean, if it's not giving you what you thought or what you intended, then ask it for more. And then of course, like alternative prompting, so revising and editing. And this is one of the things I introduce my students to in terms of prompt engineering. And I think it's pretty good. And I'll just give you a second to look at it. I know that you probably have some others that you go to, but I think that this summarizes it pretty well on a single slide. And I think it's pretty easy for students to understand. So does this look familiar? Has anyone used this before? Lisa, do you have one that you tend to go to in terms of prompt engineering?
Absolutely. So when I'm talking about helping students adequately prompt, but then also edit the output, even though Dan has updated his prompt engineering framework to a prepare, which I'll drop in the chat here, I don't like his updated one because I think it's so vitally important that we teach students that they're not done when they prompt the AI. They also have to go back and edit the output to make sure it's factually accurate, it's free from bias, and does it reflect their own creativity and critical thinking. So yeah, this is my standard go-to, even though there's lots of other options out there.
Yeah. Here's another one from AI for education where this is from the student perspective, like teaching them how to write better prompts. I think it does a good job. And then that same thing is available for teachers, right? Just a little bit different, but those prompt frameworks can be very helpful in us helping our students to get better at all of this. So I think what I'll do, since we don't have time to work on this assignment idea, is I want you to just for a moment think think about assignments in your class. And if you don't currently use AI, can you imagine a current assignment that you could tweak to bring in an AI component? And if you have an idea, I'd like you to share that just to help the group, right? I showed you a couple of assignments that I've done, but or has anybody very successfully created an assignment using AI that you'd like to share?
Hello, my name is Rebecca. Yes, I'm teaching ESL courses in Houston Community College. Okay, so I'm very interested in AI use in ESL instruction. And I know that actually there is a lot of misuse of AI in their writing assignments because it's very tempting just to throw all the questions to AI and let it generate it, even a whole essay, say, they don't need to do any work. And my students have different backgrounds. Some of them are very weak. So of course they want to take the shortcuts. So what I can think of to use AI in their assignment, like this writing assignment, is to break a big assignment, a big essay into several pieces or chunks and break it down and let them, of course, I can just give them, individual questions that can help them to organize their ideas and just ask them to enter those questions into ChatGPT. And I want to see how they interact with ChatGPT regarding those questions that I asked them to think. So then they cannot be so lazy. They cannot just throw the question and waiting for the response. They have to interact. And I can request the record, what is that called? The traces of this interaction. Yeah, and think in this way, I can just encourage them to think independently, but they also have some assistance from AI. Yeah. So
that's a great idea.
When they're working on the essay itself, they've already been provided with many ideas and expressions and also very advanced academic vocabulary from AI. So I think in that way we can kind of help them to make this essay task not that daunting. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it sounds like a great use of AI. It sounds like the students would benefit. It's removing you from being the sage on stage to really facilitating the learning process. That's awesome.
Yes, and also about this policy thing is we had a little bit chat up in our session, there's a session room, but we did not have enough time. So I was busy searching for the policy in my department. So it's kind of depends on the instructor. Of course, we have kind of a guideline. The guideline says that your students are not allowed to use AI, but since so many students are using it, and even professors and instructors are using them to kind of refine our announcement and the instructions of our assignment to make it kind of more accurate and to express more effectively what we want students to do. So why shouldn't we give our students to have this opportunity to take advantage of this tool, right? So I think that maybe we can just include some active AI use from the learners. We can request our students, you can use it. For example, for writing class, for example. So we can ask the students 5 minutes every day writing. You write your own stuff, and then you need to provide me the feedback from AI. And then you also provide me an improved version of your work. I think in that way, this interactive way, and students will feel more encouraged. Because, if we rely on just the instructors to provide all the feedback for every single piece of writing, it's gonna be I'm so swamped. Actually, the previous the weekend, last weekend, Saturday, I stay up until 5 o'clock in the morning because I want to provide them just detailed feedback for each student's work. That's so much, too much that I cannot really. I cannot.
And that brings up a great. And I know we're at time, but that does bring up a great final thing that AI can be used for, and that's feedback. Now, of course, we always have to remember that AI is not going to provide personalized, like very specific feedback to the student. Like that's our job. And AI feedback shouldn't completely replace what we do, because we need to stay connected to students and the work that they do. But I have a colleague who has dabbled in using it to provide feedback, and it required a lot of upfront work, a lot of training, the AI tool that she used, but then she was pretty happy with how it worked out. But, I would say use it, but at the same time, stay connected and, keep your finger on the pulse so we can help our students the best we can. So I'd like to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I just feel that students will benefit if just we integrate AI into their learning process, especially for language. So language for communication. If they have the opportunity to communicate with AI who has much better skills than them, then I think they will benefit. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, for everyone who registered today, I will be sending out a link to the recording as soon as I've had a chance to clean up the video. And I will send out all of the links that we dropped in the chat today, because we had a lot of very interesting links to follow. So thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Bill, so much for sharing your wisdom and your strategies with us today. And we hope to see you at future EKU programming.
Okay. Have a great day, Ray. Bye-bye.